Hi, this is Fabs. Kassai is one of my favorite heroes, and I've done plenty of playing with her, but now I've fine-tuned her game plan to another level. So I've explained this wheel technique which I have before. What's my game plan? How do I execute my game plan? And what's the equipment? And how are the core and the percentages? And on what's the side? Even for Blitz, I think you do have a sideboard because you have a couple of cards that you switch in or switch out when you expect your best buddy playing Ira or Kano to show up or not show up for your local armor events, right? But in essence, you answer these questions. How do I beat my opponent? What cards do I use? What deck building constraints do these cards have? And of course, the cards that I use are supplemented to how do I beat my opponent, and the deck building constraints are followed by what cards I use. So in this case, I have more tempo than my opponent, I block more and I draw more than my opponent, and I need to have tons of go again and low reactions. Follow that on a bit. Now the equipment of wow, that's a nice play, Matt. Now the equipment of Kassai is really interesting, but the core essence is the weapon, which doesn't have go again, so I need this is the deck building constraint. That's why I need go again. But the interesting part is what it gives is that Valiant Dynamos blocks for a ton. If I have 5 to 6 turns in a game, maybe once I full block and just Arsenal, then I have 4 to 5 additional block just from one card. Now that's really interesting. Why? Because I start with this card. Now this also provides us with an insight as to why Kano is a difficult matchup. Suddenly those Valiant Dynamos are blocking for a ton, and I actually need an additional card to have all this Arcane Barrier pop up, and I need tons of blue to actually play out all my driving blades, etc, etc. So deep blue is an interesting one. Caveat: you need to use it early, because if you have straight up example, I have they play on their turn a card which I have to use Arcane Barrier 3 to deactivate because it's just too potent of a damage combination. Now during my turn I just have these 3 red cards available. Now I activate deep blue, and at this point I just have 2 cards in my hand, and in essence just Arcane Barrier 2. If my opponent acts on this and tries to go off instant, I need to have a high life total. You can just around about 15. If I'm at 10, you can just blow me out with Blazing Eater combinations or what's the card called? Fork Lightning. Don't do that. Use it early to fix a 3 blue, 3 red, 1 blue hand. But in essence, what is strong about Kassai is the equipment. So I've already explained it multiple times, but Skull Cap, Courage of Blade Ult, and Brave for Braces all block for 6, and then 3, so that's 9. And the Valiant Dynamos, they block for, explained earlier, around 4, so that's 13 block. So Kassai starts at 30 plus and a bit. Sigil of Solace complements this also. So play Sigil of Solace, because of if you have a block inefficient turn, or you block for 3 with a card from your hand, or you just block with Valiant Dynamos for 1, damage is seeping through, so you can ignore unpotent on hit effects or just flat damage, and you can buffer this with Sigil of Solace and pad that life total even more with Valiant Dynamos. So you're playing an adult hero in Blitz. That's interesting, right? And you push through the damage with second swing and sharpened steel. Like I said, you have the 2 swords, so you're attacking multiple times, so you're getting the most value out of second swing. Now this is really predictable damage, so you need to have some kind of reprise effects. Now currently in my iteration of the build, I'm just playing Out for Blood, Stroke, and Iron Song Response. I think in my current list I have 2 Iron Song Responses, maybe it should be 1. So I'm still thinking Out for Blood, just because it blocks. It has a total damage output 4. Stroke Foresight is really interesting due to another card, which is Nature Path Pilgrimage. Be with you in a bit. So turns looking like play hit and run, attack for 1, still have 2 pitch left, 2 pitch, and you can outblood that first attack, or you can activate bracers, attack with the second, which comes in for 3, and still have that flat 3 damage. So if they overblock the first swing, or they don't block it, you can keep your cards on hand and just bait them out like that. Arsenaling a card where your first swing went through fully, the second swing is overblocked, then just arsenal that outblood stroke foresight. This package, this set of cards, make sure that you keep tempo and push over tempo as an addition to the amazing block potential of those cards. So you have block, 10 plus block from your equipment, but now you can block additional cards from your hand. Because if I block with 2 cards from hand and I play a cash in, or I hit with a Nature Path Pilgrimage, or with Nursing Emptiness, I have 5 cards to work with. So I've blocked with 2 cards and I still have those 3 cards. If I have Arsenal, I actually have 4 cards, which I just blocked 6 or even 7 with the Valiant Dynamos. I'm pushing through way more damage than my opponent can. So I'm keeping tempo while I'm still padding my life total. And this is what makes Kassai tick, and what's strong about Kassai. Now, an additional fun little combination is the Nature Path Pilgrims with the stroke of foresight, which actually makes you set up the additional draw. And the most potent version of this, when I have Nature Path Pilgrimage, I swing with, I have a Source of Go again, so I played Hideron, Nature Path Pilgrimage, and I attack. Still have 1 pitch left, right, pitch blue card. Now that my opponent blocks exact or tries to overblock, then I Saber procs, and then hopefully I can push through that stroke of foresight, or I just leave it be like that. But mostly I hit with stroke of foresight, or trigger the reprise effect, then I put on top an action card and make sure that's not a reaction, and then Nature Path Pilgrimage puts it in arsenal. Now if that card is a second swing, I do need additional pitch to have, but if I have this additional pitch, now you're threatening that second swing, brave for bracers, and your second, or your second swing, not the second swing, but the second saber swing is actually coming in for 4 plus 1 from the brave for braces plus 2 from itself. So you're doing 7. Now in the first attack, if it's Nature Path Pilgrim hit and run, that's also 5, which is buffed by stroke of foresight to 8. So this is a ton of damage. Oh, I agree, this is 5 plus cards, but the package of Nature Path Pilgrimage, Cash In, and Nourish Emptiness actually make this possible. And if somebody's coming at you with a big swing and you just put your fridge in front of it and you block 7, that's just from your equipment, and you smile with maybe 1 card, and you're like, I'm blocking 10 and I still have 3 cards coming back at you. Mostly what happens in, especially in the game of Blitz, is that if somebody comes at you with a ton of damage, they've taken a ton of damage to actually make this turn possible, because it's back and forth. They need to do, for 10 plus damage, they need to have these 3 to 4 cards in hand, maybe 5 even with the arsenal slot. And if you block 7 from just your equipment, and maybe 10 with 1 card from hand, you're still coming back at them with 3 cards. Now this is also demoralizing. Also a strong suit of Kassai. So last final point for me is that the blue cards are so insanely strong in Kassai. You have actual choices here which you can define to your meta. So you have Dauntless, which makes Ira not an easier match, but it makes it harder for them to get that flick flag value on your first swing. Push forward, actually make sure your last attack 3 dominate. Now, if they cannot block now with an attack action, because it goes to 4 and actually pushes through damage because of the dominate, especially early game where you play a hit and run attack. I wrote it down here, so I can actually explain it correctly. So you have a hit or run with your first saber swing. This one has go again. Then you play second swing with push forward. That's a total pitch of 3. So you have 3 cards with 1 card to pitch. That's just 4 cards. And with what I explained earlier, having cash in, Nurse Emptiness, Nature Path Pilgrimage, and that stupid fridge of blocking equipment, you can actually push through this damage with push forward. Now the deck building constraint, you actually need to play all these go again cards. And the Spoils of War, I didn't mention it with the way that pitch lines out, but Spoils of War is also really important, just because of the fact that with 1 blue pitch you've left, you can stroke Foresight or Out of Blood. That's really strong. I've Glint mentioned here especially because I played 14 blue cards. Now these Glints are mostly played, not always pitched. So I count them as a half, just because sometimes I want to play them out. But to be honest, I pitch them a ton. But sometimes having a hand of 5 cards and a card in arsenal, and then just swinging, even if you crack the courage, and just swing for 2, you make your opponent really go into the tanks. Go, oh, what can he possibly have for cards on a hand that he's threatening? To be honest, sometimes it's just 3 blue cards or 4 blue cards, and I just want to put out some tougher choices for my opponent, which I think there will be additional damage, which makes him just block for 2 or 3 with the first card, and then I reprise, glint it, and draw an additional card, and then the second attack is like hit and run, second swing for 8. And now if that's pushed forward, you're presenting lethal most likely in blitz. So to answer these questions, how do I beat my opponent? I have more tempo. I explained how I achieve more tempo, right? I block more and draw more cards with Nature Path Pilgrimage, cash in. Didn't mention, but it's an all-star. It's the specialization of Kassai, let's be honest. And sorry, it's looking at the time. And the reactions that you have need to be low count, but they do present some surprise damage. It's not reprise, but surprise, where you can't just have upfront damage, because then someone can look at their life total and calculate how much they can take and swing back. And now if you constantly have this threat of a reprise effect, just like Dorinthia has, with a higher reprise count, then you actually have the possibility of your opponent making the wrong choices, which results for you in a win. Now, as always, be gracious in defeat and humble in victory, but go start building your own version of your own deck, because flipping back to this, answering these questions made me have a fundamental knowledge of Kassai, reevaluate cards, and actually during playing I look at a card and I think, now I understand why this one needs to be switched out. Okay, it's a Q2 card combo which I had in mind earlier when I was building the deck, but fundamentally my deck needs this card just to push through damage or whatever. So that's it. Love you guys. Cheers, bye.